Have you ever wanted to get that custom driftwood weathered look on some of your wood pieces? Well, in today's video, we're going to show you how. So for this video, there's a couple of goals that we were going for. One was to utilize as much scrap wood that we had. Two was to also make a headboard, a custom headboard. And three, try to get that really nice weathered texture. And we'll be going over all that in this video. So basically, I came up with this idea of just making a headboard frame first, just out of some spare wood that I had. As you can see, I cut up some plywood, put a little bit of wood glue and some screws, and voila. So the wood that we're using is poplar. It's a really soft wood, and we'll explain why we're using that later on in the video. What I want to start off with is basically I want you to get your first piece. If you're going with a very big piece, perfect. If not, you really want to make sure that first piece is square and flush. As you can see there, I had a really good 45 on the edge there, and that's what you want to start off with. You want to start off with one edge, 45 it really good, make sure it's perfect, because any seam that you're going to show on the corners of things, it's going to show. You're going to have to use a lot of filler. It's going to be really bad. So make sure you miter those 45, set up your saw really nice and well, and you'll have really good cuts. So as you can see here, I'm layering and layering and layering these pieces of wood. And what I'm doing right here is actually looking which exposed surface is going to look best. So kind of keep that in mind. And what I did was I measured the edge I want to cut, and what I'm going to do is going to cut it at a 90 degree. Make sure it fits perfectly here. As you can see, I'm going to just line that up, make sure it's good, and then I set mine to a 45. I 45 that edge, and then I put it back on there and nail it in. So all we're doing is putting some wood glue and nailing it down, and as you can see, this is how it's going to look. Now I'm going to finish that top edge lastly. So for this top edge here, you really want to make sure all three of those corners are perfectly square, perfectly 45, so it fits really well. Next thing we're going to be doing is distressing this. So what I like to do is I like to come in with a chisel, make some really big, deep chunks out of it, and then I like to go over it with this wire brush wheel. Okay, so this is going to take the most amount of time, so please wear protection, eye protection. You're not breathing in this stuff. Really use a respirator. As you can see, all those chunks flying everywhere. You don't want to breathe this stuff at all. So my technique is just to kind of freehand it, but if you want to use a pencil, mark it out, that's great. For the corners, you want to take some chunks out of it. Make sure, you know, it looks like it's a full piece of wood. And what I like to do is go over it with an orbital sander on the edges, make it nice and round, and looks really nice. And you really want to finish this, make sure all the creases, as you can see, I'm angling that orbital sander in these grooves and sanding them, because you want to make sure it's not, you know, too crazy rough to the touch. So the next thing we're going to be doing is using a summer oak finish. And yes, I'm using a roller just to make it a quick process. Make sure you wear gloves. I did not do that at the start. Definitely wear gloves, okay? Sometimes I'm a little stupid. It's all good though. But yeah, I just rolled it on, and as you can see, you're going to have some spots where it doesn't really get in there, and that's actually on purpose. So the reason we have these spots open still is because we're gonna come in with a secondary stain. It is called Kona, and it is by Varathane. The first stain we were using was Summer Oak. That was also by Varathane. Pretty much everything we're using is Varathane, actually. So I'm just gonna wipe the rest of the Summer Oak off, and then as you can see, we're gonna be using the Kona next. And the reason why we left these spots open was, one, so you could see them. Second was because we just want it to just be super saturated with this Kona stain. So you're just gonna fill in these spots, and then what I like to do afterwards is just kind of even it out just with that brush there, as you can see. And then just kind of, you know, go over it with a towel. It'll smooth it out just even a little bit more, and just take a step back, look at it. If you want to add some more, perfect. You're just gonna kind of fine tune this until you really like it. The next stain we're going to be using is a weathering technique that I like to use. It's just this little weathered gray, also by Varathane. And all I do is I just use a towel. So we're just adding a little bit more stain here. Make sure you get in those crevices. and wipe it all down. Make sure it's a little bit dry before you add this last layer on. Now, I'm not sure how long I waited after this, but just give it a little bit just so it keeps its brown tone to it. And then all you're gonna do is just lightly skim over the top with a towel with this weathered gray and just kind of mix it in afterwards. Just kind of take the rest of the weathered gray off with the towel and just kind of wipe it around like this. Now, it's up to you how much gray you want it to have. That's really kind of up to the user that's doing this. So just kind of add however much you want to. If you don't even want to add gray at all and just have that really nice brown wood, that also looks great as well. But I thought this just needed a little bit of gray tones to it. And as you can see, it turned out really well. So all those deep pockets that you're seeing is the chisel, and then I went over that with the wire brush and just made them just a little bit deeper. So the chisel's main purpose is to get those deep cuts in and then fine tune it more with that brushed wheel. The last thing I did was I finished it with a polyurethane. I put 2 coats on and it turned out absolutely amazing. You can see all the grain textures in there and it just looks like driftwood. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I'll try to answer them as best as possible. Don't forget to leave a like on the video. It helps me out tremendously, and I'll see you in the next one.